This is a really special night. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. We are trying really hard here to build something special. And as I look out and see the faces that are here, I know that we are achieving great things because so many of you guys that are here tonight are part of this community, and it's not just showing up, it's you're contributors, like you're making this. So it means so much to me that you guys all came tonight. When Steve said that Seymour, Rifkind, if you don't know Riff, was going to be in town, I thought, you know, this is a great opportunity to do something I've been wanting to do for a while. And that is have an opportunity to bring in our founding members. Just by show of hands really quick, if you're a founding member, can I please see hands? Thank you all so much, you guys. Yeah, it's pretty special. A lot of these folks are here every day, sometimes twice a day. I'm not joking. Has anyone hit the 3 times a day mark? Has anyone been here 3 times in one day?
Now that you have.
Joey's been here 3 times in one day. Rick probably has. Yep. No, that's impressive. We like that. Please keep coming back. So yeah, when Steve said that Riff was going to be in town to do an IPTPA session, I thought, you know, I would love to have. To me, the IPTPA is the gold standard for teaching instruction in, well, the U.S. and globally. I don't know what else is out there globally in other countries, but I've known Riff since I was involved in a previous venture having to do with pickleball ratings, and yes, I do have some PTSD. I blame Paul and Steve for dragging me into that. But no, that was a great journey, and I only ever did that thinking maybe I could make some money to do this, and I failed at making money, but I made all the other stuff that I needed to do this. So the network, the community, the connections, the knowledge, and so I thank Paul and Steve both for that. So I would like to ask Steve to introduce Seymour here in a second, because what we're doing tonight, a couple of things. Number one is we're going to honor the only 2 Oregon residents who are in the Pickleball Hall of Fame. Steve Paranto and Enrique Ruiz. We have a couple of fun surprises when it comes to that. Yeah, the Hall of Fame started in 2018. Is that 2017? And Steve and Enrique were a class of 2019. And there's something special that we want to do for every future Oregon resident that's in the Pickleball Hall of Fame. I don't know how fast that's going to happen. I challenge you all to get yourselves into the Pickleball Hall of Fame. Some of you are, I know, well on your way.
Julie has Hall of Fame parties.
Okay. You might get in through the back door on this one. So yeah, we'll talk. So yeah, anyone else that is in the Pickleball Hall of Fame from Oregon, we will do the same ceremony for. We'll recreate it down to the T. Except maybe the black lights will be stronger. We'll see how that goes, folks. I'm curious. It'll be interesting. That's a very big space, but we're gonna do our best. So yeah, if you didn't know tonight, we're gonna turn off all the bright lights and we're gonna maybe play a little glow in the dark pickleball when we're done here. So I'm gonna have Steve introduce Seymour. When we're done with the Hall of Fame bit, we're gonna have Steve and Riff up here doing a Q&A talking about the state of pickleball. We're lucky to have Riff has a few different titles because he's retired. He's the president of the Hall of Fame, president of the World Pickleball Federation, president of the IPTPA, and he is the disruptor, according to Sports Illustrated. If anyone read Barbarians in the Kitchen, Riff is the disruptor. So I think we got him a couple beverages, loosened him up. Can't wait to hear what he says. We've got the live stream going, if you didn't know. So with all that said, Steve, if you could do me a favor, introduce Seymour, and then after that, we've got a little ceremony.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, first off, I almost don't know where to start with Seymour because of all his accomplishments in the world of pickleball. When I first met Seymour, it was about 8 years ago. And he's coming from world-class gymnastics. If you can't tell by his body, he's in his, how old are you now, Seymour? 71? World-class athlete in gymnastics. Gymnastics, if you don't know this, biomechanics is very important in gymnastics. You could die if your biomechanics weren't perfect. And that's absolutely true, isn't it?
Yeah.
The things that they do.
I've got 9 lives.
Yes.
I only got 1 life left.
Right. Like, absolutely. So what I think I first bonded with Seymour because I appreciated biomechanics. I was a certified tennis teaching pro from Vic Braden. Vic Braden was the first person actually in athletics who stressed biomechanics, studied it. And so I was all into mechanics being efficient. Well, you had to be that. Well, Seymour came to our sport and fell in love with it. He's retired at this time and loves the sport of pickleball. And he goes, so where do I go for lessons? What do you mean there's no certified teaching pros? You know, if you're a golf, if you want to learn golf, what do? You go to a certified instructor. They've gone through a process that's very difficult. Here's what you teach. You teach this first, you teach it. Well, wasn't done in pickleball. And at that time, you could learn from this guy over here across town one way, teaching you who knows what, and another guy over here teaching it the opposite way. And so he contacted many of us who at that time had played for a long time that he trusted with things like mechanics and teaching. And we all got together as a group on what should we teach first? What's important? So he established the first teaching credentials in pickle. That was what he did first. By the way, then he goes to USA, back then it was called USAPA, pickleball, tells them about this, going to share it. I'm going to, I'd like to help you do, nah, we don't need that. He makes it a big success. And what do? We're going to copy it, call it something else. So that's where that came from. He doesn't, he keeps going. And he's developed, that's what we did today, by the way. We taught level 1 teachers who are going to be great teachers introducing pickleball in their area. Then he decides, he knows my history, he knows about my dad. He wants to we need a Hall of Fame. This sport needs a Hall of Fame. If we don't create a Hall of Fame, we're going to forget about those people who established this sport, who my dad created the first composite paddle. Those people, the early champions would have been forgotten. He creates the Hall of Fame. Oh, it was his idea. Let me say it was his idea. He goes to USAPA. Nah, we don't need a Hall of Fame. Makes it successful. What do they want to do? Let's have a Hall of Fame. Yeah. And so, he's done that. And then he's also created the World Pickleball Federation, which is probably eventually going to be, and I know he's in negotiations. Maybe he'll answer that. That's part of the Sports Illustrated article. They'll answer questions about that. Because the International Pickleball Federation is falling apart because of a lot of people that shouldn't have the jobs that they had or the responsibility that they had. They just wanted to run the business. Besides that, he's a great player, a great teacher, great person, and we just spent a wonderful week. So, this is the part that's hard for me because if it wasn't for him, my dad wouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame and been alive. But he wasn't the only one. There were others who wouldn't have been alive to see that happen to them. Yeah. So that's my introduction.
Riff, if you don't mind, let these folks know, what does it take to get in the Hall of Fame? So when it came to, the first class, the second class, the third class, like what's the criteria? What's it mean? And how, challenging is it? What's the future look like for that?
First of all, Steve is you know, Steve just gets me into trouble. All I can say about that. Steve taught me the history of the game. And I was just, you know, somebody that loved pickleball that came in like all of you. Okay? Everybody here. How many of you are addicted to pickleball? Raise your hand. All right. So you know, I fell into this trap that you know, I got addicted to pickleball. I love pickleball, and as I discovered certain things needed to get done, I volunteered to just simply help out. But you know, when I volunteered, nobody was interested. I certainly didn't think it was a priority. And you know, I'm not one to just sit back and accept no for an answer. And Steve's been telling me for, you know, there was 15 or 20 years where people tried to start Pickleball Hall of Fame, but nobody was willing to do the work. And it just so happened that, you know, I started a Hall of Fame in gymnastics back in 1974, I believe it was. So kind of expressing my age a little bit here. So because of that, I knew a little bit about, you know, what it took to develop a Hall of Fame. Because of my love of the game, and because I started to recognize some of the people through Steve, whether it was Steve's dad or Sid Williams or, you know, Barney McCollum. I mean, without those people, I wouldn't have been introduced to pickleball. And pickleball literally changed my life in so many ways. So many people that I've met are simply because of pickleball. My entire social circle is all about pickleball. And, you know, I felt that if nobody was willing to do it, I certainly could do it. And, you know, when I reached out to Steve, and this incidentally was not my idea. Okay, I want to give credit where credit is due. The initial idea that was presented to me came from who's the publisher?
Magazine.
Yeah, who's the publisher?
Yeah.
Dollar.
Huh?
Yeah.
Wayne, yeah. So Wayne Dollar, back in 2016 Nationals, brought me, Steve, Justin Maloof together and said, "Hey, what do you guys think about a Pickleball Hall of Fame?" Steve says, "Yeah, I'd love a Pickleball Hall of Fame. We've been talking about it for 20 years, but nobody does anything about it." And I go, "Yeah, I think it's a great idea." And Wayne said, "Well, you know, why don't we do it?" And Justin said, "Well, you know, let me take it to our board and we'll get back to you." So evidently he did get back to him, and it was, you know, a month or two later, and the answer was it's not a priority. And I understand that. I mean, you know, if you're the governing body, there's a lot of things that are on your plate. I'm not one to begrudge the idea that they didn't think it was a priority. But as I learned more about the history of the game, as I learned more about the age of some of the people that, you know, were so influential to the game, I did not want to see the Pickleball Hall of Fame eventually come about when these guys all died. And so, you know, I put together a organizing committee with Steve and a bunch of other great people, and said, look, you know, not only do I think we need a Pickleball Hall of Fame, but we need to do it quickly. And this conversation started in April of 2017. And, you know, my goal was by Nationals of 2017, like 5 or 6 months later, we'd have our first class of inductees. And through a lot of hard work of our organizing committee, we put together, you know, all of the criteria. We put together, you know, a dinner banquet. We put together gifts. We give away, you know, to all of our inductees a ring, a jacket, a plaque. You know, from day one, we really created a first-class Pickleball Hall of Fame. So, you know, the question that Kevin asked, you know, what does it take to get into the Pickleball Hall of Fame? Well, you know, anybody can nominate someone for the Pickleball Hall of Fame. You don't need to be a member of USAP. You don't need to be a member of any other organization. If you're in pickleball, if you know somebody that you believe has the criteria of 5 years of excellence as a competitor, of dominance, then, you know, nominate them. We have 2 different committees. We have a nominating committee, and their job is to take a look and read through every single application that comes through. That nominating committee is made up of 9 people. It's a diverse group. It's a group of people that are male, female, high-level players, national champions, people that are newer to the sport, and they evaluate every one of those applications. Then they have a couple of phone calls where they have discussions. They review it, discuss every single person, and then they vote. They vote several times to dwindle down to eventually 10 people. And those 10 people make the finalists. Now, there's 2 categories that we currently have in the Pickleball Hall of Fame. The competitor category, we take a maximum of 3 people per year, and the contributor, and we only take 1 person per year. So there's a maximum of 4 people that get into the Pickleball Hall of Fame. And those 10 finalists, up to 10, we don't always have 10, they get to make become finalists, and they go to another committee. That final committee is the selection committee, made up of different people again. So you've got 9 people that have done the evaluations, that have dwindled it down to go to another committee. That next committee is made up of 7 people. And they go through the same process. They evaluate every single evaluation. They meet, they discuss people that are on that committee. If they didn't know people, it's up to them to ask questions from people that did, do background checks on everybody, and then they vote and dwindle it down. And the top 3 people that had the highest number of votes and also have to have a majority are the ones that finally get inducted. And so that induction ceremony last year was done in conjunction with the Pickleball Hall of Fame Championships. Pickleball Hall of Fame Championships last year was our first year. It was done in Dreamland in Dripping Springs, Texas. That's also going to be the new site of the Pickleball Hall of Fame Museum. Okay, because one of the things that I wanted to do before I kind of passed the torch was to have an actual museum in a facility where there would constantly be a flow of players and other people that could go through the museum and learn about the great people that contributed to our sport, whether they were the contributors or whether they were players, and we would have their panels, and we would have videos of them competing and newspaper articles, and those of you that have visited any kind of sports Hall of Fame, it's just an incredible place, to enshrine, people like Steve and his father is just something that's so special. And, we want that to be able to live on for, as eternity, right? I'm really looking forward to that being finished. And, so that's kind of where we're at with it. That's the criteria. So
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Steve. And so, what are we doing for our Oregon residents of the Pickleball Hall of Fame? Excuse me for 1 second. Stephen Enrique, you'll be happy to know.
Come here, Enrique.
Come on up, Enrique. If you don't know John Higgins, who does our incredible everything here, the Higgins signs, we have them to thank for this. Will be on our wall just below Recreate. And this leaves, we honor the Pickleball Hall of Fame inductees from Oregon with a lifetime Rex membership. Steve Paranto, 2019. Enrique Ruiz, 2019. My lovely wife is going to take a quick photograph.
And this is, by the way, the jacket that
Wow. Oh, very gorgeous.
Do you have a ring? I should have worn my ring. I didn't know you give your ring on.
We're not done just yet, but
Everybody look out here.
Oh, I love it.
so the good news for Enrique, you will never have to pay our outrageous prices here again. And for Steve, I have bad news. This means court time is free, but beers are not. We're generous. We're not idiots.
I think that means
Luckily for those that don't know,
I love this.
Steve Bruce is over here too. And it's good.
So, my story with Enrique, I can't tell all of them because we were both single together at the same time. I had just got divorced. I was like 42, 43, and he was never married yet. He was in his early, and we met on the pickleball courts, and we liked each other right away. I always have had a board at my house,
Wow.
and we've had so much fun playing pickleball together. He wants me to tell you this story, and I want to tell you this story. I took him to his first big boy tournament, and at the time, you have to remember, our sport was invented near Seattle. The best players were in Seattle, and I've told Rip about this all week. Those Seattle guys, they were very good, but they never shared anything, and so. Like they would have like 4 or 5 good, Yoda. We got Norm over here that knows all this. We had Chris Miller. We had all these. They wouldn't share their secrets, so we had to infiltrate. We had to go and play with them to see all the things they were doing. And I remember taking Enrique to his first big boy tournament. We stay at my parents' house, which is like an hour from the tournament. My mom cooks the best dinner for us, and my mom got the biggest kick out of Enrique stories all night. She always talked about Enrique and his just having so much fun with Enrique. I know we all like that dinner.
Yes,
And
we had spaghetti
We had
and fresh bread out of the oven.
But those are, I love it when I can share memories with friends like Enrique that knew my parents.
Now, I remember being at on the bleachers watching a wonderful class, including his father Arlen being inducted into the Hall of Fame, thanks to people like this young man here, that not only helped.
I haven't been described as young in a very long time.
Not only did he help with it, but he made it happen. And I remember sitting there when that class got inducted, and just how special it was for us watching his father Arlen. Health wasn't at his best anymore at that point. So that was very, very special because for those of us that know, not only knew them, but also know what they did for the sport of pickleball. They planted the seed, and the rest of us, we get to enjoy their hard work that they did. It's wonderful.
I was fortunate because I was put in as a contributor. I think I was nominated as a player. Also.
You were
Both.
nominated for both.
But the reason I got in as a contributor because I coached a lot of national champions. Well, people like this fell into my lap. Just fell in them. I'm not kidding. Wes Gabrielson, you, Bonnie, just fell. Sarah Ansberg are in my area, and I got a chance to coach those people when they were on their way up. And man, watching Enrique win the national championship as a coach, I don't think would have been any better if I won that national championship. But he was the first one to win it from our state. And Enrique, one of the reasons he's in the is in the Hall of Fame. He won 3 men's doubles championships with 3 different partners. Wow. So
Steve, I don't think you can get into Pickleball Hall of Fame until you've won nationals 7 decades in a row.
So my big claim to fame that is I have won. Now remember, when I learned pickleball, we didn't have five. There was no such thing as 5-0. It was the advanced through the. So I have won at the highest level in 6 decades, starting in the 70s.
Yeah.
So I Ben Johns can tie me in about 2060 or something.
Well, the showcase showdown is not over yet. We have this lovely jacket for Steve. Same for Enrique. Rip, you have one in the office as well. I gotta dig it out, but
Wow.
Enrique, Ruiz. Founding members, I would like to let you know that it's not personalized, but you all have your own jackets as well. And personalized water bottles that didn't get here in time. So yeah, don't leave tonight if you want yours because the rain dance is working. It's been pouring.
So
Yes.
Kevin, can you give us the name of the embroiderer that you use if we want to have them?
Yes.
Personalized?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Great,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep. No problem. No problem. It's actually right across from Higginstein's, very nearby. So Steve and Enrique, lifetime members of RAC.
Both Enrique and I have influenced a couple of big rule changes in the sport of pickleball. This has been about 10 years ago, at least, maybe more longer than that. Enrique is very ambidextrous, if you don't know that by now. He was the first person to be successful switching hands in singles. He won 2 national championships switching hands, which does make you reach more. Well, I knew this because the first time Enrique could ever beat me in singles was when he learned how to switch hands. In fact, you know how in your head how if you ever had a bad or a loss that you never forget. Enrique, when he first started to get to the level where he could compete with me, we're playing at the Oregon State Games. I beat him. The first game was 2 out of 3, barely the first game. I was up 9-0 or something the second, and he's hitting these incredible left-handed shots, and what are you doing hitting left-handed winners by me? and he came back and won that game, and then it went to like 15-13 in the third. And I remember being in the bathroom just like, how did I let that match go? and that was when he started playing left-handed, switching. And I've never beat him since. Well, he went to nationals like the next year, and won nationals being switching hands. And so I told Enrique, the rule book says nothing about you can't use 2 paddles. So I told him. So what's he do? He has a paddle in the back of his shorts. He's warming. Then when the match starts, he has 2 paddles. And the tournament directors go, "You can't do that." He goes, "Why not?" Well, because I don't know. There was no rule. So now there's a rule. The reason that rule is in existence. The following year, that was a rule. I created the drop serve in the last 7 years ago. I promoted that should be a serve. So that's my rule change to the sport. And those are 2 huge rule changes. Those are 2 huge rule changes. And you don't want to play someone that can play with. So Wes Gableton, same way. So in my backyard, he would pull out 2 paddles, and you go, "Where do I hit it?" He's going like this to you. Like this. So there's no place to hit the ball. So those are 2 rule changes that are big and important. And the reason I told him that, I didn't want people to play with 2 hands, but I knew how do we enforce a rule is we let people get by with a rule we don't have. And so I didn't want people playing 2 hands, but now they can. Well,
this is kind of a bittersweet night because unfortunately Steve is moving to Dripping Springs, Texas. He'll just be implanted in the museum as an exhibit, telling stories like animatronic. Steve and Enrique, you guys. Thank you. Folks, I think if anyone wants, we could take a minute or two break, use the restroom, and then we're going to set up Steve and Enrique here. We're going to dive in to do a little chatter about Barbarians in the kitchen or something. And yeah, if you are just jonesing to play some pickleball, you're welcome to do that as well. When we're done with this, we will head out there, but hopefully you'll all stick around.
This is really nice.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm glad you like it. I knew before absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You are not going anywhere.
We're gonna get a picture. Yeah, let's get a picture. That's where we're
So
going.
Enrique had a good idea. Let's take a photo out in the room with Rick and Steve and
Yeah, we'll get that.
Hey Norm.
Good.
All right, folks. We still have some people playing pickleball that'll wander in here, I'm sure. We're live streaming this, and I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity having Riff in town and Steve here to, Seymour is as we talked about, president of the World Pickleball Federation. I think he could talk a lot about what's happening globally with pickleball, as well as what's happening with Hall of Fame stuff. There was that salacious article that came out recently in SI. I loved it, and I'm curious to hear what Riff has to say about the article. I think you were interviewed for it, if I'm not mistaken, right?
About 10 times.
Yeah,
How
10
many
times.
hours were you interviewed?
I probably spent 8 hours on the phone with the author.
Wow.
And I was driving in yesterday, and on NPR they were talking about that article. They're talking to the author, talking about pickleball. As I was driving in here, I was flipping stations, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Anyway, so you really can't these days, like, everyone's heard of pickleball, and most people have played it now, I think, or the adoption rate is just crazy, and we just kind of caught lightning in a bottle here, and I just wanted to have this opportunity to have Steve and Riv talk a little bit about what they see as the current state of pickleball. And I think the right jumping off point is just, maybe that article. Do you have any bones to pick with it? Is it accurate? Is there any corrections you would jump in with? And with that, off and away. And after they're done chatting about that, please fire away with your questions.
Okay, well, before I talk about the article and give you my input on that, I wanted to just throw out a couple of my very important perceptions about coming down to Oregon. When I first met Steve, Steve opened up his home and invited me to come down. And I did that probably for about 4 or 5 years in a row while I was playing pickleball. And one of the highlights of my year, every single year, was being able to come down, stay with Steve, play pickleball every day, meet Wes, meet, all of the great players in Oregon. And it's really always been the highlight of my time. And then there went a 4-year period of time when I got involved in all these organizations, and I hadn't seen Steve, and I hadn't gone to any tournaments, and I hadn't seen anybody. And I said to Steve last year, I said, I have one goal for this year, and it's got nothing to do with all the organizations. I said, I got to have some me time. I fell in love with pickleball, and now I never play pickleball. I don't go to any tournaments, and I miss seeing everybody. I love Steve. I love all the people that I've met in pickleball, and it's really hard for me to just continue to go on doing what I do without being able to see these guys. So I said, all I care about this year is I want to make time, if you'll have me, to come up and visit. And so this week has been so special to me, I can't tell you. We play pickleball every day. Yesterday or 2 days ago, we went fishing. It's been absolutely awesome. And, what I love most about Oregon in general is from 2018 and 2019, I spent 40 weeks out of the year out of the country. I've traveled to about 30 different countries. I've been to every state in the United States. And what is so special about Oregon is the culture about the pickleball players here. Every place I've ever gone with Steve is so welcoming. Whether it's Steve or Enrique or Wes, they always make time for the 3-0 players, the 3-5 players. And that culture is so important to everybody I've ever met in pickleball. You can talk about you love the game, and when you ask people, what do you love about it? Well, always number one or number two is the people that you've met in pickleball, the welcoming community that you have, the friendships that you've developed, the social aspects of pickleball. That is so important. And I know it's extremely important to me because, it's really changed my life. And every workshop I do, and you heard me talk about it, I say that our sport is going through tremendous growth. And I've worked real hard, as a lot of people have, to try to be part of that growth. But I knew early on that there is a wonderful part, but there's also a negative part about growth. And that negative part is that as more money comes in, greed and power and all the other things that sometimes corrupt people become part of it. And as we've gotten elite athletes from other sports, they don't know the pickleball culture. They come from an area of being cutthroat, and all they care about is winning, and they're throwing their paddles, and they're doing all this other kind of crap. And I every workshop I do, I talk about, as an instructor, we have to be leaders. We have to keep the culture involved. It won't just happen by itself. It's going to disappear if we don't stand up and say how important it is. And more importantly, don't allow some of that negative behavior that's starting to creep in to be acceptable. So, I just want to kind of express, my gratitude to all the players in Oregon, to Steve and Enrique, the Hall of Famers, but it goes down to, the 3-5 players also. Everybody that I've ever met, within the pickleball community has been such a warm and inviting type of community. It's like an extended family. I hardly go anywhere where I don't get invited to stay over at people's homes. And, to have that, Steve and I don't know if you'll remember this, but we went to Bend, Oregon about 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And a gentleman that was an IPTPA instructor, but I never met him before. Mm-hmm. He found out that we were coming. He said, "Hey, you can stay at my place." And I said, "Okay, great." So we make plans. We come to the airport. I call him up and I go, "We're here. Should I just Uber over, or are you going to come by?" He goes, "Nah, just go ahead and Uber over." So we Uber over. We get to his house. We ring the doorbell. No answer. Call him up again. "Where are you?" He goes, "Oh, I'm out of town." I go, "What do you mean you're out of town?" He says, "Yeah, don't worry about it. The key's under the rock. Take the 2 bedrooms off to the right."
Never met us.
Never met us. David told me where the keys of the car were. We had the entire house, keys to the car, refrigerator, beer, whatever we want. I mean, I couldn't get my daughter-in-law to do that. I got a stranger in Oregon to do that. That's pickleball, people, baby, and that's Oregon.
Yeah. So the article, is it? It's salacious.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you feel is?
So I spent an extremely long period of time with that author, and I think he's a really good guy, and I respect him. He wrote 9,000 words, 6,000 of which got printed. 3,000 words were not printed, that were probably the more controversial aspects that nobody is aware of publicly, except me and a couple of other people. That did not get printed because one of the things that I respect most about Sports Illustrated is their professionalism. They're true journalists. So after he wrote the article, I was contacted by a fact finder. That fact finder works for Sports Illustrated. His sole job is to review the facts of the case. Nothing gets printed unless he hears from both sides and that can be proven as fact. So everything that was in that article was factual. I wasn't real happy with, and I didn't know what the article was really about. Okay, he interviewed me. He spent more time with me than anybody else, he said. And he said the entire article changed after he talked with me. What it changed to, what it was, I don't know. Like I said, he wouldn't tell me what it was about. And I respected that. I said, look, I have one thing to ask of you. I said, I love pickleball. We're going through some growing pains, like most sports do. I said, I hope whatever angle you take, you if you play pickleball, recognize how much pickleball means to so many people. People really are passionate about this game. Pickleball goes beyond just a sport. It changes people's lives. It brings people together. You know, I'm currently doing a documentary in Israel, and I introduced pickleball in Israel 5 years ago. And Israel, being in the Middle East, has been no stranger to war, conflict, hatred, all the things that are the ugly part of mankind. Shortly after introducing pickleball in the town of Haifa, which is a very mixed city and community where there's Jews, Christians, Muslims, a lot of Arabs, there is hatred that people have been taught since childhood, okay? And it was very difficult to get these different factions together in a room to talk about anything. But all of a sudden we introduced pickleball, and there's 13 people being represented by all these different factions, playing pickleball, laughing together, having fun, and for the first time recognizing that, hey, we're all human beings. We have more in common than we ever were told or realized. And to me, you know, that's the beauty of pickleball. You know, in Chicago, we have pickleball that was introduced into Cook County Prison about 6 years ago. You've got blacks and whites and Hispanics that were trying to knife each other, that after getting introduced to pickleball and playing pickleball together and laughing on the court together.
They probably want to choose the partner who's rated higher than to be their partner, regardless of
ethnic background or religion. So, you know, to me, that's really the beauty of pickleball. And, you know, I'm a little saddened that there wasn't more of that in the article, but to his credit, he finished the article with that. You know, he talked about that story. So, you know, I understand controversy sells magazines, and you know, if you're a writer, you know, your job is to sell magazines. Now he says, you know, afterwards when I said that to him, he said, "No, that's not true, Riff. You know, I'm here to tell the truth, and I've been angled that I was thinking about. It had nothing to do with selling magazines." And I believe him. You know, like I said, I like the man. I had a good relationship with him. I had a lot of really good conversations with him. You know, since that article was published, there's been, you know, I've been interviewed for a TV show. I've been interviewed by the New York Times. I've been interviewed by, you know, a ton of other media personalities. And, you know, as you said, pickleball is now mainstream, whether it's, you know, movie stars, other great athletes that are coming into the game. The beauty of pickleball is that, you know, it hits every single demographic, and there's no, barrier to play. You know, you can get a starter kit and chalk out your driveway and play pickleball. I've been in some of the most exclusive country clubs in the world, where, you know, you got to be a billionaire to be a member, and they're playing pickleball, right? So, you know, unlike some sports that are considered, you know, high-profile, rich man sport, pickleball fits that category, but it also fits the everyman category, the blue-collar category. So, you know, from my perspective, my belief is that pickleball, I have no doubt, will be the most popular sport in the world. And whenever I say that, you know, I think of Barney, and I think of, you know, Bill Bell, and I think of Joel Pritchard that invented this game, and I think of Arlen Paranto, and I think of Sin Williams, and I think of the people that were in that initial class of inductees. I mean, for those of you that, and I think you were there at that first one, weren't you? There was not a dry eye in the house. Every single inductee, every single person that was there was just, tearing their eyes out because it meant so much to these people to be inducted. Never in their wildest dreams did they ever think the sport would be at the level that it's at today. Never in their wildest dreams did they ever think there'd be a Hall of Fame. And then for them to be in it, it was like, one of the greatest moments of their lives. And for them to have that, before they passed, because, within a year, within 3 months, Sid Williams was gone, and then, not long after that, Barney was gone, and then Arlen was gone. There were 3 people that were in that initial class of the Pickleball Hall of Fame that if we didn't have it in 2017, it would have been a memorial instead of the honor that they so richly deserve.
Rick, I have a million questions I'd like to ask you and Steve, but I'm just going to boil it down to basically asking about the future of pickleball and, USAPA or USAP was kind of the only game in town. And now suddenly there's all these organizations, different interests, different agendas. What role do you think the USAP plays or should play in growing the game domestically, and how does that fit into what you're doing with the World Pickleball Federation? And I don't know if there's an Olympics tie-in there potentially, but what thoughts do you both have on that?
The article I think expressed pretty clearly that I've had issues with USAP in the past, and those issues were never with USAP, but it was with some of the people that ran USAP. I personally believe that USAP has done a tremendous amount of really good work. They're the most powerful organization in pickleball today. Still, the game was invented here. It was the passion, the hard work of a lot of the volunteers from USAP that got the game to where it is today. Unfortunately, from my viewpoint, my personal experiences, there have been a couple of people that unfortunately got into positions of power that thought it was all about them and thought that it was, their ego and their power was more important than the game. Those people are no longer with USAP. I have a great relationship with the current CEO. I have a great relationship with the chairman of the board. We're in the process right now of negotiating through some of the issues that came up last year regarding the duplicity of the Hall of Fame. I think, the inductees made it very clear they only wanted one Hall of Fame, and that was the current Hall of Fame. The players, the pros today said the same thing. And I think USAP, recognized that, that's probably what should be done. And so I'm very confident that, we will get the support of USAP. There will only be one Pickleball Hall of Fame, the current Pickleball Hall of Fame. And that's the way it should be, The sport has gotten so big that I don't care how smart you are or how good and how big your organization is, you have to collaborate with other people of influence in other organizations that really want the same thing you do, right? If your intentions are true and you love the game, you want to grow the game, and you live by your mission, okay? What's the mission of USAP? It's to grow the game. It's to take care of the rules. It's really to guide us into the future. I believe in all those things. Therefore, I support USAP. Okay. I think that the only way that we can move forward and even have any chance of being in the Olympics is we have to get our own house in order. We have to get all of the different factions to recognize that you can be competitors and still work together for certain initiatives. And like any sport that's growing very quickly, there's a lot of people that come in with different ideas. And, the democratic process and capitalism and competition is really good for pickleball in my mind. You go through some hard times, but ultimately, whatever ends up being good for the sport, I think it ends up, hopefully in the long run, kind of winning out. So I'm optimistic about USAP. and at least my dealings with them, I'm optimistic that I think that they're on the right track, and hopefully, good things will come from that. I'm very hopeful that, with what currently has taken place with, at IFP and WPF, that there's a unified group that's made up of about 10 people. There were 10 countries that left IFP. There were a number of board members and directors that left IFP, and I'm currently in negotiations with them as well to support just one international governing body. And that's very important because, the IOC has certain rules. And, the very first rule is you cannot be considered for a sport at all unless you have one international governing body that is recognized and accepted by all the member countries. And we don't have that right now, okay? So that's really very, very important and really a first step. Nothing can be done with the IOC or with GAISA until, the member countries recognize and support one international governing body. And I'm pretty hopeful that's going to be WPF. So, whatever the countries decide is what I will support. Okay, because I do believe 100% in the democratic process. And I do believe and have faith in the pickleball community that, if there were lies that were said, the truth and actions will win out. And people will recognize that, don't believe everything you hear. If you love the game, do some investigation on your own and find out what really the truth is. And once the truth is recognized and people see it and experience it, I'm very confident that we will have one governing body that, some of the issues that are going on with, PPA and APP, those are a little bit more difficult. That's out of my realm. But what I've tried to do is reach out to all parties concerned and said, regardless of what your individual goals may be, everybody I've ever spoken to, whether it's Steve Kuhn or whether it's Ken or whether it's Tom, they all believe that we should be in the Olympics. So there is some common goals that all of these people do agree upon, and let's work together in order to make that happen. And if you're always fighting with each other, it's just sapping a lot of energy. It's sapped a lot of energy out of me over the last 3-4 years. I mean, I feel bad for Steve and for Wes and for Andy Gensch and some of the people that were on our board at the Pickleball Hall of Fame. When I asked them to be board members, everybody asked, well, what's the time commitment going to be? And I answered honestly. I thought that, we would have, meetings, on a quarterly basis. And obviously during the induction process, we probably have to work pretty hard for 2 weeks. But there was literally a year and a half where we had meetings 3 times a week. 3 times a week, sometimes for several hours. And all of those meetings were really battles with USAP that were not necessary. And I knew ahead of time that nothing was going to come of it, and that's what made it even worse. But I still had to go through the motions because I didn't want to look like I was the jerk, and people would think that, well, Rick doesn't want to negotiate. Well, Rick is willing to bend over backwards to do what's right, but I'm not going to just give in to a bunch of people that don't care and they're only looking for their own egos. So I feel bad that all of the rest of the board had to go through all that. I signed up for it because I started it. But these guys didn't. So, but Steve's hung in there, and has been with me from the start. And besides him being a Hall of Famer, he's been a great friend, a great ambassador for the game. You guys all know that. And so, I'm just blessed to have him as a friend and a supporter and a confidant.
Steve, what do you have to add? Something about skinny singles, I bet.
Oh, we have questions?
Please.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rick, what's pickleball? I mean, United States, it's just booming.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. What about international? What do you see?
So
Is
it's booming internationally as well. Now, to be honest with you, the last couple of years I haven't been able to travel too much because of COVID. I was in Istanbul a couple of months ago, and I was in Israel. And I'm going back to Israel in July because, the Maccabea Games is the third largest international sporting event in the world, and we've been accepted as an exhibition sport. So, when you talk about a stepping stone to the Olympics, to be accepted by an IOC sanctioned event, we'll have IOC delegates there. We're going to be doing 4 exhibitions in conjunction with the tennis competition. And now, I'm trying to get, some PR events by doing exhibitions in the streets of Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa for the citizens. And get TV cameras out there, invite the police and some of the military and common citizens on the court to experience the greatest game ever invented. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that in certain countries it's grown phenomenally. In other countries, not so much. They need help. They need assistance. They need equipment. They need some finances. But there's some countries that I've been to Australia 4 or 5 times, and I can tell you, the very first time I went there, people had heard about pickleball, but they literally thought it was just for ladies that were 65 and older. And the second time I went, I brought Joey Furious with, and we did exhibitions at I think 6 different tennis clubs, and we challenged the top tennis players there to come on out and play us. And number one, nobody got more than 2 points. And number 2, they all had fun, and they're highly competitive.
Yeah.
And they did not like losing to an old man like me.
Yeah.
So really, really quickly, that game has grown very rapidly. And John must have left already, but John is from Australia, and he could tell you a little bit, more. But all along the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, it's taken off like wildfire. So it's grown phenomenally there. Europe, in England in particular, Karen Mitchell has done a phenomenal job. She's the president of Pickleball England, and it's grown great there. France has a great group of people there, real family-oriented people. When I went there, the whole family plays pickleball in the morning, the kids, mom, dad, and then they all eat, and everybody brings, food, and it's just like a big get-together. It's a whole Sunday event, and I love that. I love that. Spain, they're doing great work. The Federation in Spain, WPF, donated $8,500 to an initiative that they did throughout Europe to introduce pickleball in the schools, to introduce pickleball for those that are less fortunate than us. So they did it to those that had mental disabilities. They introduced pickleball to children at risk, and they're doing great work, within Europe. And I've been to China 3 times. I've been to Hong Kong several times. I will tell you that the last time I was in China, I met with the the government sports bureau in Guangzhou, and I was the first representative from any international pickleball organization to meet with the government. And we had a couple-hour meeting. There was about 12 people there, and at the end of that meeting, the outcome was that they're building a Olympic city in Guangzhou, and it's supposed to be only for sports that are in the Olympics. But they've already allocated land for pickleball. They've already created factories, government sponsored, that will make the equipment and everything else. So, if the government gets behind pickleball, which I truly believe will happen. Now, if there wasn't COVID, I would have been able to go to Shanghai and do that same presentation. And then the next step would have been Beijing. And if I would have been successful at those 2 organizations, those 2 different cities, then I was told that, the government would back pickleball. And that, when they say back pickleball, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars. I saw things that I just never thought was possible when I was in China. I mean, here in the United States, at IPTPA, we've got this junior development initiative. And we talk about, how the approach to working with children is so much different than working with adults. because the attention span isn't there, because, they're growing and developing and everything's got to be a game and everything else. Well, I go to China and there's a facility that's twice the size of Rex, okay? And you've got maybe, 300 kids all lined up in rows, and this is what they're doing. And I was there watching for 20 minutes. I don't know how long they were there. And you got one person in the front on a podium yelling out instructions, right? And they're like little robots. I mean, it was unbelievable to see. So when you say that, children can't be disciplined to do it, maybe that's the case here in the United States, but it's certainly not the case in China. So the point being that if the day comes when the government really does put their backing behind pickleball, there'll be 40 million people that are playing pickleball in China alone, and believe it or not. And they won't be good, they'll be great. Because they will start training at 5, and they'll work out 8 hours a day, and they will totally take over. I truly do believe that from what I saw. In India, today in India, there's, a bunch of tennis players that have come over and recently gotten into pickleball that are probably 5-0 players. There's really good players in Taiwan. I haven't seen them in a few years, but in 2019, there were, at least 10 players that were at about 4 or 5, approaching 5-0. They would be 5-0 if they have other 5-0s to play with. So, I think the outlook for pickleball worldwide is just absolutely incredible. And as more countries open up and travel can begin again, that everybody looks to the United States. So every time there's some publicity about, Michael Jordan playing pickleball every day, Serena saying I love pickleball. I mean, all that stuff goes out, in social media, and other countries see it, and where there was resistance before, the doors are open. So the timing is incredible right now for the growth. As much as we think that the game has grown so quickly now, we're still in its infancy. It's absolutely in its infancy.
Riff, pickleball is huge in the U.S. and yes, everyone looks to the U.S. Pickleball is also huge in Canada.
Yeah.
What I know we have some people watching this right now from Canada.
Yeah.
Kind of interested in your take on what's going on up there. Do you have any thoughts on Canada's role in the growth of the game? And
so one of the things that I've said for quite some time is that I've never thought that Canada really got its due respect, because they are the second largest population of pickleball players in the world. Our number one female player in the world is a Paranto. She's from Canada, right? Because we have a lot of great players in the United States that are Canadians. I think that the Canadians have a tremendous. The people that I've met, the people that I've talked to, that are on their PCO, the ones that I've had discussions with as of late, I respect tremendously. I think that they have, pickleball's best interests at heart. I think that they embrace the democratic process. I think that the values that they have certainly are what we share at WPF. I think that, I've said this to the Canadians, I think that a world championship should be in Canada. We have World Pickleball Games that I'd like to see in Canada at some point. It's a matter of having a facility that can host it and all that type of stuff. Which there's some great cities in Canada, whether it's Toronto, Montreal, Alberta. So I think Canada is one of the leaders when it comes to pickleball, and they're not really recognized.
Why did you choose Texas as opposed to the Seattle area for the Hall of Fame?
So a big part of that was, when we first started the Pickleball Hall of Fame, I reached out to Pickleball Central and had nice conversations with ownership there. and told them that, to me, it was important that we not just have a virtual Hall of Fame, but we actually have a physical presence. And they were kind enough to, give us an area in their warehouse to have it. I also investigated having a Hall of Fame on Bainbridge Island where the game was invented. I thought that, where else should it be other than where the game was invented? But, when it came down to actually taking a look at what the future would be best, I looked at a few other things. First, I wanted to have traffic going in and out of the facility as much as possible. I did not want a dinosaur to sit there and say, oh yeah, that's the Pickleball Hall of Fame, but nobody ever goes there, right? That would not do justice to the people that are enshrined in it, right? I want a Hall of Fame where people could go in there and they could see what the paddles they played with. They could see, what they were wearing. They could see, a video, all the things that was kind of a feely touchy type of thing. And then there was just the reality of, the Pickleball Hall of Fame, just like all the other organizations I started, are all not-for-profit organizations. So the Pickleball Hall of Fame had like $0, dollars. So, how do we build a museum that can cost, $500,000 and we have no money, right? So, it became, an opportunity to investigate, a partnership. And, initially we had a partnership with the Pickleball Ranch, which was simply a facility that was not built, but they had the plans and they had the money and they were just waiting for permission, with city government to get permits and the like. And, dealing in Austin, it can be difficult at times. They have strict guidelines and I understand that. So what we thought was going to be a year program has turned into now being over 2 years. And it's not fair to the pickleball community. It's not fair to our inductees. We made the announcement that we were going to be in a museum. And we still didn't have any clear indicators of when they would start moving dirt. Because they were going to build 32 courts. Pickleball Museum was going to be the anchor to that facility. And that would be built for us free of charge. So it's kind of hard to take a look at, what all other alternatives are there. Now, I did investigate 3 other facilities that may or may not have been willing to do something similar. It just turned out that Austin was the one that, we initially picked. Now, the article pointed out that, we now have changed our mind and we're going to Dripping Springs, where Steve Kuhn has offered the same type of deal, but he's already got a facility that's done. He already has traffic that's going in there. So in addition to having MLP there, where we've got, every Tuesday, pros coming in and we've got people and visitors going there, he also has a music stage and musicians and live music coming in all the time. He has miniature golf there, and he's got a ton of other plans. He's got 90 acres. So Steve is I'm very good friends with Steve. I respect Steve, and I know that he has pickleball's best interests in everything he does. People can disagree maybe with what he's doing, or you could disagree with some of the decisions he's made for any of the programs that he's done. But I will never ever argue his intentions. He loves the game. He wants to do what's right for the game, and I'm very, very pleased and happy to partner with Steve, and pleased that he's been willing to build that pickleball.
I don't know who he is. Could you describe who he is?
So Steve Kuhn is a gentleman that is very successful from a business perspective. He made his money on Wall Street. He's really a young man. He's in his probably mid to late 40s. He retired about 4 or 5 years ago. He's involved in a lot of philanthropic type of endeavors. Originally, he was from Minnesota. Has moved out to Austin, Texas, and is a key influencer. And he's a great guy. So he's got a facility called Dreamland in Austin, Texas. They got 16 courts there with room to build as many courts as he wants. He could have 100 courts. He's got, like I said, a miniature golf courts there.
Major League Pickleball.
He's got Major League Pickleball there. He brings in art and music. That's a big thing for him. So all the grounds are filled with artists. So he's great for pickleball. You know, I swear by
So
Steve.
he's the league owner of Major League Pickleball, would you say?
Yeah, this is his baby,
Entrepreneur,
and,
right?
yeah, and you know he has 12 people that have bought teams within Major League Pickleball. Okay, but it was his idea, his dream. He put together a team. Now he also owns Cooper, so you know whatever controversies may or may not exist with Cooper and the
Saw that
rating
in the
system.
article.
That's Steve's as well. Steve is not involved in the day-to-day operations of that. Jillian Braverman is the CEO, and she has a staff of about 30 to 40 people. So, you know, he's somebody that puts his money where his mouth is. He's a doer, and you know, I know his intentions are always what's best for the game.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes.
My sister wants me to ask you this. That's my sister back here. Can you still do a back handspring?
Maybe in my dreams.
Come on.
Round off backhand.
So, Seymour did a ride across from
San Diego,
San Diego to Florida
St. Augustine,
for
Florida.
a fundraiser about a year ago. For
Just over a year ago.
yeah, so on his bicycle, and I told him, I kind of challenged him, when you finish, I want to see you, because people were videotaping his finish, I want to see you do a handstand. He had no trouble doing a walking handstand on the beach as a, so very good person, yeah.
If I had to do a back handspring, I probably could, but there'd have to be a real good reason for me to do it.
Tonight's a good reason.
Question for Steve. Are you raising your instructor prices after now you're in the Hall of Fame?
I have not ever, in fact, you've got to realize that most of my lessons in my life, we're talking the basket was totally for free, and we were begging fitness clubs to have us come and demonstrate. And I would gather up my friends like Mark. Mark and I, Mark's over here. We gathered up, I forget we did that last, that's one of the last 3 ones I did right before COVID for a fitness club in Hillsborough. And, you know, back in those days, we begged to just show the sport. Maybe I finally got to the point where people would put me up in a hotel and we did it free. Things have changed greatly in the last.
The answer is no, Scott.
But I haven't. My home prices for giving lessons are the same, and you know, and yeah, when I give lessons here, I love it because Kevin arranges everything for me. You know, I was a teacher, fortunate to be a teacher for 30 years. I never had to worry about scheduling kids to come to me for lessons, right? I mean, it was all scheduled. Well, Kevin's kind of like my superintendent, my principal, that schedules all that, because that's the stuff I don't like doing. I like teaching.
You're the talent that this has to be managed.
Yeah, I have to be managed. Exactly.
Maybe the last question, unless anyone else has another. Pickleball will be in the Olympics in what year?
Hopefully.
Well,
Our best shot.
I think that if you would have asked me a year ago, I would say it's going to be a long time. But today, I really do think that there is a chance we could be in 2032.
32? Wow.
Australia.
Australia.
We'll still be alive.
And if you guys haven't picked this up from being here, this is the hardest working person in pickleball, but there's nobody close. So when he's at my house, you know, he's making kind of play, but he gets up 4 hours before I do, and he's doing pickleball work the whole time. I can hear your voice talking on the phone. I mean, nobody. None of us are willing to do what he's doing. Nobody. And things wouldn't happen without Seymour right now. And hoping you know, Seymour's hoping that when we get the new Hall of Fame form, that he can leave and constantly play more. He would love to play more. I'm not willing to give that up, my play time, right, Rick?
That's right.
So, and there's not many of us. Well, look at the players that are out there playing.
Right.
People are not willing to give he's given up a big sacrifice to work his ass off to do the things that he's done in pickleball. I mean, I can't believe there's an existing human that does what he does. So, anyway, thank you.
As we're shutting down the live stream, here's my challenge. My challenge to every other pickleball club in the country is to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Every Pickleball Hall of Fame member should have a lifetime membership to your club.
I never knew this was going to happen. I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.